Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Backline Report. This is our first show of the week. And of course, we always bring a preview of what's going to happen on all major tours in the LPGA, the PGA Tour, and the Champions Tour. We're going to bring it to you. But usually we have Kieran Clark to help us out, Fred Alvader and I. But we're going to bring today some other reinforcements. We always have to do something like that. And we're bringing in who better than Mike May? I mean, he's been with us before, and he's a great friend of the show. Mike, I'm going to bring you in first. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Looking forward to an exciting 2023, and this is a great show to be on because we're never going to be wrong. It's all conjecture. It's opinions on the future, and we'll see what unfolds.
That's good because that's how bettors do, right? And hopefully they won't be trying to bet on what we say. I mean, we're always right, but sometimes things can go sideways, But Fred, hi, how are you today?
Hey, I'm great, Carlos. A little cold up here in Cadillac, but we're doing well, and great football. My Buckeyes lost, Michigan lost, but Big Ten's out. But oh well, it was great stuff. Really good football games this weekend.
Texas won. That's what I can say. What can I tell you? Sorry, I had to throw it out there. But
there you go.
Yeah, it was a great weekend for football. Of course, we want to also say our prayers and thoughts are with the family and the player, Damian Hamlin, because of what happened yesterday on the Buffalo Bills and Cincinnati Bengals game. Of course, everybody is aware of that horrific injury for him. He's in critical condition. For what we know, he had a cardiac arrest. Details are still murky on it, but definitely our prayers and thoughts are with him and his family. Hopefully he gets a full recovery, and who knows. But anyway, there we go for him. So let's get right into it. Fred, the PGA Tour starts the 2023 year. They already started the season, but 2023 year starting to this week, and the Tournament of Champions is coming. That's the first tournament that we're going to have, but it's a long year ahead. So let's start talking about the Tournament of Champions and what do you expect about the 2020?
We had the fall wraparound, and we're kind of used to that now. And a lot of events, some first time winners, all that stuff. But now the golf gets serious. January rolls around. We're in Hawaii. The annual start to the year. They go over for the Century Tournament of Champions at Kapalua. We've seen Kapalua over the years. It's not that hard of a golf course. The wind usually blows there. That's really the only defense that the golf course has. If the wind doesn't blow, they can go really low. Last year, Cam Smith won this thing, I think, at 34 or 35 under par, something like that. It can get really low scoring there if the wind's not blowing or the weather's not too bad. But we're not going to see the defending champion this year, Cam Smith, even though he's eligible. He had a couple wins last year, had just a tremendous year, but he moved over to the LIV, so we will not see him on the PGA Tour this year. Who is there? Well, 40 players qualified. One of the main players that we wanted to see, of course, Rory McIlroy, not there, taking his break, still on Christmas sabbatical. Not unusual. He's qualified for this thing 12 times, only played in it one time. So no Rory, but we've got Max Homa, we got Justin Thomas, Victor Hovland, Colin Morikawa, Scotty Scheffler, Patrick Cantlay, John Rahm, and Jordan Spieth are all there. Those are the names you want to see. Those are the people that you want to watch. And just a little heads up here, John Rahm was runner-up last year, lost by one shot to Cam Smith. If I were a betting person, I would put my money on John Rahm this week at Kapalua. They added a secondary eligibility this year. 10 golfers are in the field that did not win in 2022, including Sahith Theegala and Cameron Young. There's a good player, Cameron Young. Big event, good players. Look for Cameron Young to be there on Sunday as well. Neither of whom got a win, but also the top of the PIP list of 23 who qualified for bonus money, 17 are at Kapalua this week. This is one of these designated events, Carlos, that the players are supposed to be there. They only get one exemption, one excused absence, and Rory's taking his one excused absence. So he's going to have to play in all the rest of them. Favorites this week, Cam Smith, like I said, was 34, but John Rahm, I like him because he was right there last year. This is a perfect golf course for him. He hits it a long ways. He's a good putter. perfect golf course for him. Others in top 5 last year, Patrick Cantlay, Collin Morikawa, and Justin Thomas. If I had to pick just one, no, it's going to be Rahm. Coming off a great year in 2022, but not great. I think he's looking to improve on that this year. And as I mentioned, I also like Cam Young. He's never played in this event, but seems to always be among the leaders in big events, and this is a big event. So, Carlos, I'm going to let Mike talk, but before we get away from this, I want you to tell us who your Rookie of the Year for 2023 is going to be.
Okay, for the PGA Tour, I have C1 Kim or SH Kim. That is, so I'm going to go with him as my favorite. He has experience internationally. Now he gets to show that experience, and his game is really, really nice. And everybody will see about him. He's been playing since 2017. He has 2 international victories, more experience than all the other rookies that we're going to see this year there. So I think as the year goes on, you're going to see how his game, he's going to gain confidence and actually going to be the Rookie of the Year for the PGA Tour. So
Carlos, now the last 5 years, how many Rookie of the Years have you picked in January that have been right?
Well, in the LPGA, my streak got broken this past year. So I have to admit that's the first time that I lost it. Here you came. I thought she was going to win it, but unfortunately she finished second. But hey, on the guys, I have lost twice, so it's okay.
We're starting our 11th year here in a few weeks, and Carlos has been doing this for a while. He doesn't miss very many.
So Mike, welcome. I forgot to tell everyone that you are the editor of the Indiana Golf Journal. You have been working with the company that handles the digital scorekeeping for the LPGA tournaments, and you can be seen at most of the LPGA events around the country. So we're happy to welcome back our longtime friend of the Back Nine Report, Mike May. So Mike, again, welcome. And I want to ask you, your take, some players that you may have on the PGA Tour for this year. What's your take? What do you expect to see on the PGA Tour?
Well, I think this is a coming out party for a number of players. Those who have moved on to the LIV Tour have created an opportunity for younger players who are looking to prove themselves to get on the tour and make a name. The tour is always about transition. There's always new faces coming on board, but we still have a number of established names, many of which Fred mentioned: Hovland, Morikawa, Scheffler, Cantlay, Rahm, Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, so Rory McIlroy. So the cupboard is still full. The Kapalua event is always fun. I love watching that par 5 18th. They can swing that ball around the corner and give themselves a number of eagle putts. And of course, John Rahm is a big hitter, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up with 2 birdies and 2 eagles and wins by 2 on Sunday. So it's an exciting year. As Fred said, the wind always picks up. That's the biggest form of defense at Kapalua. And if it doesn't get windy, they'll go even lower. So it's good TV. And when you're Fred in Michigan in January, covered by snow, Kapalua looks pretty good.
It looks real good.
It definitely does. And how about this year? I mean, which players we have seen Rory McIlroy finally taking the mantle of the go-to guy again on the PGA Tour after the LIV players left. We have seen him taking that mantle of, hey, I'm the guy, I'm the face of the tour. But we still have John Ram, we still have Justin Thomas, we have Collin Morikawa, we have Xander Schauffele, we have plenty of other players that can go out there and beat him anytime. For us, I have always said that Rory McIlroy is the player to beat whenever he's on. But what do you think about any players that you can tell us, or any tournaments that you're looking for this year on the PGA Tour?
Well, I think the first 3 or 4 months will be key as we all look towards Augusta. Scheffler's obviously defending. McIlroy's looking to complete his career Grand Slam. And I think as every year goes by, Rory probably feels a little bit of pressure. He's in his 30s. He's closer to 40 than he is 20. So he's no longer the young gun on tour. He's the established guy. And I think if when Rory plays relaxed, he plays exceptionally well. He'll be tough to beat. But there's a young players. Justin Thomas is looking to add to his haul of 2 PGA championships, and Rahm, Cantlay is yet to win a major. Scheffler wants to defend. Morikawa wants to add to his British Open and PGA. So the competition's tough, and there aren't as many big names. We're used to saying Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, Bubba Watson. Those guys are no longer on tour, and it's an opportunity for the new young guns to make a name for themselves. And every year we seem to have a number of unknown names come forth, and I think we'll see the same in 2023.
Fred, any storylines that you're looking for before we move out from the PGA Tour this year?
The big story probably in 2023 is going to be just like 2022, Carlos. It's LIV versus PGA Tour, and then the players that are going to go back and forth. We've already seen the Masters. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, but or I am going to anyhow. But the Masters has already said they're going to let the LIV players that are eligible to play, which is I think they had to do that. I think all the majors will have to do that. And we've said before in previous shows that we look for the official world golf ranking to start issuing points to the LIV events so that these players can get up in the top 50 to qualify for these major tournaments. So I think the big major story for the year is still going to be the LIV and what's happening, Greg Norman and all that stuff. Not that that's what we want to be. We'd much rather be talking about players and tournaments and records and all this other stuff. But the lawsuits are coming and all those kind of things. So, Carlos, I think that's still going to be the number one story.
We definitely think so. And Mike, let's move on now to the LPGA. And I want you to, since you're our resident expert, to talk about the LPGA. I mean, last year we saw Lydia Ko again finally come back and be atop of the rankings and be the Lydia Ko that we expected her to be before she fell off the top of the rankings. But we also know that Nelly Korda was not fit for most of the year. She has been climbing back, coming back to form. So we can expect from Nelly Korda that as well. Yin Young Ko unfortunately has been suffering from an injury on her wrist, and she hasn't been able to play to the top of her caliber that we expect her to play. But the LPGA is a tour that every player is good. I mean, every time all the top players come every week to play. And that's one of the beauties of the LPGA, that you can see all the top players, or at least most of them, week in and week out, come in and play. So what do you think about the LPGA this year?
I've got about 12 names that I just jotted a few notes on. And first of all, LPGA, it's a very international tour, far more international than the PGA Tour, both in where they play and how many players are on the tour. It's Asia, Europe, North America. And when I say North America, I'm talking about Mexico, the US, and Canada. We're getting some players from South America, but this is in no order. But Jennifer Kupcho, who of course won the inaugural Augusta National Women's Amateur event, finally broke through, won her first event last year at the Chevron Championship in Palm Springs. Lexi Thompson's not won since 2019 when she last triumphed at ShopRite in New Jersey, but week in and week out, she is very consistent, top 10s, top 25s, and despite not winning since 2019, she's still top 10 in the world. So she is a threat every time she tees it up. Though she did win an LET event this summer up in Long Island. She did win, just wasn't on the PGA Tour. Lydia Ko started the season well, won it in Orlando back in January, and then sort of played steady and then had a strong finish and finished with the Vera Trophy Player of the Year, won CME in Naples in November, had a great finish. Nelly Korda won one event last year. It was in November. It was at Clearwater at the Pelican event, so she finished the year strongly. Minjee Lee has won two majors the last 2 years. She won Evian in 2021 in France, and she won the US Open last year here in the US. Brooke Henderson, one of the more popular players on tour, not just in Canada. She won twice last year. She can hit it a long way, good putter. It's just a matter of whether her wedge game's on. Jessica Korda often exists in the shadows of Nelly. Brilliant player, last one in 2021. Look for her to have a strong 2023. Leona Maguire had her first win last year in Fort Myers at the Drive-On Championships. Again, I see her name top 25 week in and week out. She finished second last year to Lydia in Naples. Also, look for Thea Thittikul, the 19-year-old, probably now 20, from Thailand. I was at the Walmart Northwest Arkansas Championship when she shot 61, I believe. I counted her card at the end. I happened to be in the scoring tent. She shot 29 in the front. I got through 9 holes, 29. I was looking at maybe 6 more shots to make 35. No, it's 29. Wow. I think she had 10 threes. Brilliant round. Rising star, very young. Carlota Saganda from Spain, very steady player, needs better finishes on Sunday to win. Also look for Matilda Castron from Denmark, solid player. And Celine Boutier from France, week in and week out, she's top 25. Great players all around the world. Really, who's going to show up putting the best is going to win.
Definitely. You just mentioned 12 players, but we can still go on and mention 20, 25 easy. That could be.
My dark horse pick for the year, Lucy Lee.
Ooh, that's a good young player.
Yeah, I got a Battlefield promotion. I was in Toledo last year at the Dana Open. Final round, we had threesomes, and I know the 2 of the last 3 were Lexi Thompson, who was towering over Lucy Lee. And Lucy probably reminded Lexi of her days in junior golf. She was the bigger player, taller, more physically dominant. Yet Lucy outscored Lexi on that championship Sunday at Highland Meadows in Sylvania, Ohio.
Hey, Fred, how about what, following up on what Mike said, how about the LPGA Tour and all those players? Do you have any others? What expectations or storylines would you look forward to this year?
Yeah, I'm not going to spend much time on the veterans because he did a really good job covering that. But I just will mention the fact that for me, the 3 top players right now on the LPGA Tour are Lydia Ko, Nelly Korda, and Jin Young Ko. Jin Young Ko when she's healthy. Okay, if she can get back and get over this wrist problem, she'll be right there with those 3. Nelly was, had some health issues last year. And I think she's pretty much over that now. So I look for her to rebound, have a really big year in 2023. Lydia just got married the other day over the holidays here over in Korea. I don't know if you followed it, but on Facebook, Steve Eubanks went over and he was posting some pictures and things. It was quite a deal. I don't think Lydia's going to have any trouble with money. Her husband is part of the Hyundai family. So I don't think she's going to have any money issues real quick, but I don't know how that'll affect her playing and all those kind of things. I don't know, it's an Asian marriage, so I don't know if she's going to be able to continue to be the player and travel as much as she has and dedicate as much time now that she's married. And if she decides to have a family, that's going to cut into it too. And Lydia told us when she was 17 or 18 years old that if she played past 30, she'd be surprised. So, but I do like those 3. So I want to talk just real quickly about some younger players, Carlos. The LPGA does get started in Florida in January. They only have the one event. They're going to be at Lake Nona, the middle of January, the week before the PGA show. Let's talk about some young players. Number one, if you remember when I interviewed Stacey Lewis at the Dana Open in Toledo this summer, she gave me a couple of names of young players that she was watching as possible Solheim Cup team members coming up this year. So Lilia Vu, who's played really well, and Andrea Lee, Allison Corpuz, and Lucy Lee. So Lucy Lee is one of those players that everybody's got their eye on. And Carlos, I know it's no surprise to you, but Hairan Ryu, I probably pronounced that wrong, from Korea, was medalist at Q School. She's already won 5 times in Korea. So she's somebody to watch. I'm going to throw another name that you're probably not familiar with, but I'm real familiar with. Valerie Plata finished 3rd at Q School. She's right here from Michigan State. She had a great career at Michigan State. She's won a couple of amateur events. She's really a good player. We've been talking about Alex Plano for several years. She's been a standout amateur career. She's now officially on the LPGA Tour. She finished T21 at Q School. Last year, she made 16 of 18 cuts on the Epson Tour. She qualified for the National Drive, Chip, and Putt on 3 occasions as an amateur. She was the youngest golfer at 11 years old to enter an LPGA Tour event in 2016 and was the youngest player at the inaugural Augusta National Women's Amateur 3 years ago. So she's got experience well beyond your years, and she's somebody to watch for. Also, I'm going to just kind of throw in here a couple people that I'm kind of watching for 2023. Mike mentioned Jennifer Kupcho. With her win last year, you could see her confidence growing. I look for her to have a really big year this year. And then, Carlos, both you and I have been real high on Leona McGuire for a long time. And I also look for her to continue to be a consistent performer on the LPGA Tour. But my question to you is, Carlos, who's Rookie of the Year on the LPGA this year?
Well, you mentioned her already, Ha Lan Yu. So I think she reminds me a lot of young Lee Six. She's coming after 2 years on the KLPGA. She was Rookie of the Year there. She won also the Korean Amateur 2 years before in 2018. She has already won 5 times in 2 years. The limited exposure, because remember 2020 was a year that was shortened by the COVID-19 pandemic. But now 2023, she'll be here. And I believe she's going to be easily the Rookie of the Year. She just has it. That's my name. But I also have to agree. I mean, and well, whoever hears our show knows that I always talk about Leona McGuire. So I've been following her for a long time, and I think this is going to be her breakthrough year. She's been knocking on the door last year, and I think it's going to be this year that she's going to finally break through and be at top of the leaderboards more often. So, Mike, I want to, before closing on the LPGA, I want to see what's your take on what to expect for the Solheim Cup this year.
It's going to be competitive. The Europeans are better than ever. You've got Castren from Denmark. You have Georgia Hull, Charlie Hull. They both won last year. You've Carlotta Saganda. So I expect a very competitive Solheim Cup. I also happen to be in the scoring tent at CME back in November, and Stacey Lewis was in there, and I just happened to say offhand, if you qualify in points for the Solheim Cup team, will you be a playing captain? She said, well, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it, but she implied that she would like to do that, or she might be open to the idea of being a captain's choice if her fellow assistant captains really push for it. So don't expect the young ones to totally take over. I like Lucy Lee as a Rookie of the Year. Pano from Florida is a strong choice. She also qualified for the U.S. Women's Open back in the summertime. But I expect the Americans want to go to Spain to win, because they had to take it away back in Toledo in 2021. And it'll be a fun Solheim Cup, and it'll come down to the last 9 holes on Sunday.
Can't wait to see it. And let's move on now to the Champions Tour, or should we call it the Bernhard Langer Tour? I think we should change that name, because Bernhard keeps defying age, defying everything. Fred, how about the Bernhard Langer Tour this year?
Yeah, Bernhard at 65 years old, he is the major storyline.
I'm sorry, how much did you say it was?
65. 15 years removed from, the regular tour, from 50 years old, and 44 wins. Just needs one more to surpass Hale Irwin. We look for that to happen probably early in the year, I would say, or to tie him at least, and then maybe catch another one before the year's over. We'll see. But Bernhard Langer is the biggest story on the PGA Champions Tour. They do get started here in a couple of weeks in Hawaii. They always start with the first event over there. After the 2 events, the PGA Tour regular events, then they have the Champions Tour get started when the PGA Tour moves to the West Coast. There are some new players this year for the Champions Tour. I know we're all excited to see Richard Bland, who is now eligible. But I don't know that we'll see him on the PGA Tour Champions, because he went and played on the LIV, so he'd have to get around that whole suspension thing. So I don't know how that's going to happen. Another player who opted for the LIV, Lee Westwood, turns 50 this year, so I don't know if we'll see him on the PGA Tour Champions. We have seen Stuart Sink remain fairly competitive on the regular PGA Tour, but he turns 50 in May. If he decides to play on the Champ Tour, guys, he could be the guy that dominates and brings more eyeballs to this old guys tour. The two other guys, Bradley Dredge and Scott Hand, they're minor players from Australia and from Europe. We'll see if they are a factor. But the guy that I'm most curious about coming on to the Champions Tour this year, Boo Weekley. You gotta love Boo, right? Turns 50 in July. He is just coming off a bout with some cancer. One wonders if he can tear himself away from hunting and fishing to play with the old guys. I definitely don't see Richard Bland leading a fan rush to the Champions Tour, but maybe Lee Westwood or Stuart Sink if they can win early and often. But like I said, 65-year-old Bernhard Langer remains the #1 story on the Champions Tour.
Mike, it's amazing what Bernhard Langer has been able to do. Do you expect him to break Hale Irwin's record this year, and what else do you want to see?
Be careful asking Mike that question because he's a fitness nut. So Bernhard Langer and the fitness he is, I'm sure Mike will go off on some kind of fitness rant probably.
I think the fact that Stuart Sink's coming on board maybe in May is a big form of motivation for Langer to get as close to Hale Irwin's record. When you think of the Champions Tour or the PGA Seniors Tour as it once called, early on we had Trevino and Chichi Rodriguez and those guys, and then Irwin and now Langer. But who's going to come after Langer and be so dominant? I don't see anyone that fit, that young coming on board. But it's don't bet against Langer like you don't bet against Tiger. So I would not be surprised to see if he continues. He's motivated to probably play well till he's at least 70.
And if that's the case, I wouldn't even bet against him winning at 70. So Bernhard Langer, the countdown has started to see when he becomes the winningest player on victories on the Champions Tour. Fred, you mentioned the LIV and PGA Tour. That's been a story for the past year a lot, and maybe the year before, but it was last year that finally LIV launched, and they're going even bigger this year. There's still names thrown around, but that's going to be speculation until something really happens. What to expect from the LIV versus PGA Tour saga?
Yeah, we had a couple, Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay were rumored to be moving over to LIV, but nothing's ever come of that. I think we've about seen all the movement we're going to see. There are going to be 14 tournaments this year on the LIV rather than just the 8. As we've documented before, they're going to, one of the former PGA Tour stops, the Mexico event, now will be an LIV event. So we won't be going to Mexico for the PGA Tour. Also, the really kind of what we're pointing to here, Carlos, it's going to be really interesting is the Masters invitations. So they've already invited Patrick Reed, Bryson DeChambeau, Kevin, all LIV players who are eligible to play in the Masters. So I'll be curious to see how we get along down there with this thing with the LIV players and the PGA Tour players back together again. And all the majors, we're going to see this, Carlos, as we've talked about the Opens, US Open and the Open Championship. They're open to everybody. So I don't care if you're in LIV or not. Even if you're not eligible, you can go qualify and make your way on there if that's what you want to do. It's not easy, but it's doable. So the other tournaments, the regular PGA Tour events, no, we're not going to see any LIV guys in those anytime soon, if ever. We're going to have the continuing lawsuits. We're going to have motions filed and all kind of legal maneuverings in the news all year, I'm sure. But it would be great. I'm wishing and hoping, my Christmas wish or my New Year's wish, whatever you want to say, is that the LIV and PGA Tour can come to some kind of agreement where both can survive and flourish in the golf world. There seems to be enough money to go around for everybody to be happy. Let's get together, work this thing out, figure it out, and let's move on. All this bickering back and forth and all the problems, we've had enough of that. It's time to do it. The bigger issue for the PGA Tour, Carlos, and this is going to be an issue that I'm going to be watching very closely this year, are people watching the PGA Tour events? Because we saw a big drop off this fall of audience for PGA Tour events, like down 20%. That's not good. sponsors do not like that. They're paying big money. They're paying millions of dollars to have their name out there to get seen by a lot of eyeballs on television. And if people aren't watching, sponsors aren't going to put the money in. So all this big increase in purses and all these other bonuses and stuff the PGA Tour is giving all these guys, that goes away if the sponsors don't have the get the eyeballs that they want to see on those weekly reports. So that's a big story, Carlos. I think that's something we really have to watch. So I guess that's what I'm watching between the LIV and the PGA Tour. It's going to be a lot of lawsuits, still going to be a lot of rhetoric, still got a lot of stuff on Twitter and social media and Greg Norman posturing and all this kind of stuff. But look through that and see if we can get a deal done.
Yeah, and we'll still see Rory and Tiger saying Greg must go and all that stuff. But really what I am trying to see is if finally they're going to get the official World Golf Ranking points, because that will be the biggest thing. I think that will end
That will
everything.
be the validation.
If they do that, then there's not going to be any issues. They'll be able to qualify for the major tours and for the major championships, which is really what they want to do. They don't care about playing on the PGA Tour. They have the money here. They just want to make sure they don't have to go through qualifiers to go to the major championships. So, Mike, what do you think is going to happen with this saga between the LIV and the PGA Tour, and what you're looking for this year from them?
I think that the LIV will always sort of be in the shadows. There was a very close shadow of the PGA Tour until they can get a TV deal with some entity. There's been talk of being with Fox, but I've yet to see that make the headlines. So right now you've got to rely on going to the LIV website or catching some highlights on ESPN, but getting decent coverage in the newspapers. But once you get some TV equality, that may be the point that motivates both groups to get together. Though I've also been watching the same trends as Fred watching the declining numbers on television. The numbers are never historically great for the PGA Tour, but it's the right people. But when you have a 20% drop in the right people, that's a concern. And just a few months ago, the Honda people notified the PGA Tour that the 2023 Honda Classic would be its final one. Why that is, there's a number of reasons, but I'm sure there's some disgust with the way that both tours have operated. And so Honda,
Mike, that was a major event, really. I mean, that was one of the top events every year in the PGA Tour on the Florida swing. Got a good field, had a great purse. That was a real blow to the PGA Tour when Honda decided to pull out of that.
Yes, and also Honda did not exactly get its best dates, and that sort of started when the event at Doral Trump moved to Mexico. So the tour sort of went away from that Florida swing. So it's not a good sign to see a sponsor that's been around for 40 plus years go away. And I think the PGA Tour's got some housekeeping to do to clean up its act and get people happy. And I think the general public is a little disgusted by the public bantering going on between the two groups. And I think both groups are losing interest in viewership. And so we'll see what 2023 brings us. Will it be a year of change, a year of compromise, agreement, or continued disagreement? We'll see.
Definitely new golfers are not coming in because of all this bickering that's happening. They definitely have to come together in this once and for all, and hopefully we can see not a united tour, because that's not going to happen, but there's a lot of pie for everybody here to be served and have their own. So let's close it, Fred, talking about the new faces on the commentators here on golf this year. I know that you're just loving that you're going to be seeing Roger Mulvey and Gary Koch out, right? I mean, those were not your favorite. How about Smiley Kaufman? I still cannot wrap my head around Smiley Kaufman being there. And tell me what's going on.
Well, Smiley Kaufman started out in Ohio, so he's got that background. So it's the center of the golf universe, guys. I keep telling you all that stuff. So Roger Mulvey wanted to retire last year, if you remember. He was gone. He had his feet up on the couch. He was going to lay back. And then when Bones Mackay decided to go tote the bag for Justin Thomas, NBC called Roger and said, hey, can you come back and fill in one more year for us? We need you. So Roger went back for another year. So he's basically, it's just a retirement. They didn't really push him out. He had decided he wanted to retire. Gary Koch, a little different story. He's been around longer on NBC. He's going to be replaced by Smiley Kaufman and Brad Faxon. So Faxon spent some time with Fox when they had the USGA events, if you remember, those terrible broadcasts on Fox. But Brad Faxon really wasn't too bad. So I expect him to be okay. He's just going to be on one of the holes probably. So he won't have that much time to screw anything up anyhow. Smiley Kaufman, I don't know. He's a wild card. Who knows? We'll just have to see how that goes. Everybody tells me he's got a good personality and he should come through the TV okay. I think we saw him just for a couple of events, kind of on a trial basis this year, come in and do some stuff. And he seemed pretty good, actually. I was talking to Mike earlier today on the phone, and we were talking about who we like, and I like John Wood. And the big story here, the job that he does for NBC, but the big story, but the big story here is Nick Faldo has retired from CBS, from the big chair, and Trevor Immelman is going to jump into that seat beside Jim Nantz. And I don't see Immelman being quite as good, maybe at least at the beginning, as Faldo, but he's certainly knowledgeable and should be a great choice for that job. The one I would have chosen, if it were up to me, I would have picked Mark Immelman, his brother. Mark is fantastic. Whenever he's doing a broadcast, I listen to Mark. He is right on the money every time. When he's got a player out in the fairway trying to decide on a club or what's going on, Mark caddied all those years for Trevor. So he knows exactly what's going through these caddies' mind and the player's mind when they're out there trying to figure out a shot. And I love when Mark Immelman's talking. Trevor's good, but he's not nearly as good as Mark.
How about you, Mark? What do you think about these changes in the commentators this year?
Well, Maltby and Coke are like a pair of old comfortable slippers. You never want to change, but change is just part of life, and it's part of the PGA Tour. And if I reflect back on my viewing habits, I remember watching the late Vince Scully and Pat Summerall and Ken Venturi and great names at the time, Dr. Kerry Meadowcalf, going back to the 70s and going back to the 1970s on NBC. So this is all part of the change in the guard, and Gary's had a good long run. I guess I'm partial to Gary because he's a fellow Florida Gator, as I am. But, Gary's voice is still young. His knowledge is great, and I think it's unfortunate they let him go. You don't see him on the TV that much. You hear the voice. He knows the tour knows him. But we'll get used to new names, new faces, new voices, new perspective, and you never know what the future is going to bring us.
Well, the future is right now. It's tomorrow. It's going to be here. So this year is going to be a very good year, I think, for golf. If only we can see LIV and PGA Tour come together, it'll be even more amazing. But any final words, Fred, before we close?
Yeah, we've seen since COVID started in 2020, we've seen a tremendous golf boom, and we're still seeing that. The numbers are slipping off a little bit every month, not much, 1%, 2%, just slight decrease. We've still got a lot more people playing golf today than were playing in 2019 and early 2020. So that's a really good thing to me. I wrote an article not too long ago, I think last month in the magazines, that there are a variety of ways to enjoy golf today with the Top Golfs and with the new pop stroke putting things and all the stuff that Tiger and Rory are doing with their new program with indoor golf and this stuff, and the new par threes that are going in at the resorts. There's just a lot of great ways to enjoy golf today, Carlos, and we've got more and more people playing than ever before. I think that's a good thing. The tours, I get tired of hearing about all their money and the fight back and forth between the LIV and PGA Tour. I think like a lot of golf fans. So that's why I hope they get things worked out. But we've been on a really good boom for golf for a couple of years. I hope that continues through 2023.
Mike, any final words before we close?
Yes. If you're looking for a free playing lesson, tune into the Golf Channel. Watch the ladies of the LPGA. Their tempo, their rhythm, their composure is worth emulating, simulating, duplicating, replicating, whatever the case may be. They have great sportsmanship. And if you have a chance to go watch an LPGA event, the crowds aren't huge yet, though in some parts of the country, they're getting bigger. They were huge at the Canadian Open this past year. But again, these ladies are diplomatic, and they're kind to the fans, and they're they're fun to watch, and those girls can make 20-foot putts with the best of them and pull out chips, and they bring excitement to the tour. And tune in to watch the Golf Channel, or make the trek to an event. You'll have a lot of fun.
They certainly will. One of the best tours out there. Thank you for joining us. There you have it. It's our preview for what to expect on the 3 major tours this year. So thank you for joining us. It's always our pleasure to bring you the latest in golf news and information. Remember to subscribe to our channel. It's right down there on the description. Just one click and you'll be subscribed. Thank you for joining us.